Hello everyone. In this lecture, we will discuss compounding. So it is one of the topics in the subject morphology. We will know how do we spell compounding, why do we have compoundings, and what are the different types of compounding. Let's begin our today's lecture that's about compounding. So, derivation is not the only way of forming new words. Of course, many languages also form words by process called compounding. So, derivation is one of the way that we form new words in language. But beside derivation, we have also other ways. For example, we have the process of compounding. So, words are also formed with the process of compounding. Compounds are words that are composed of two or more basis roots. So one thing is more here, that when you hear like compound, so compound doesn't mean that there'll be the composition of two bases. There may be compound may be formed of two bases, or compound may be formed of more than two bases, right? Or stem. In English, we generally use free bases to compose compound. So an example we have like in 18, for example, here we have some example of compounds. Compounds of two nouns, for example, windmill, dog bed, and bookstore. So here you can see that this is spelled as one word, windmill, right? And it is spelled as two word, dog bed. And bookstore is also spelled as two words, right? So compounds of two adjectives, for example, ice cold and blue-green and red-hot. And compounds of an adjective and a noun like greenhouse, blackboard, hot hat. Compound of a noun and an adjective like sky blue and cherry red. So what did we get from this slide? You can see that compounds are formed like by adding noun plus noun. You can see wind and mill. So wind is also noun and mill is also noun. So here we have two nouns. Similarly, dog bed also two nouns, and bookstore also two nouns. And compound can be composed of two adjectives, like icy is also adjective and cold is also adjective. Blue is also adjective and green is also adjective. Similarly, that compound can be also formed with the help of adjective and a noun. One can be adjective and one can be noun. So green is adjective and house is noun. So green house. And blackboard, so black is like adjective and board is noun. And hard, it is adjective, and hat, it is a noun. And compound can be also composed of a noun and adjective. For example, sky blue. So sky is a noun and blue is an adjective. So this is the different ways that how compounds are structured in English language. Let's move to next slide. Here we will discuss when do we have a compound. How do we know that a sequence of words is a compound? Surprisingly, it is not that easy to come up with a single criterion that works in all cases. How do we know whether this is like a compound or it is a phrase? So spelling is no help at all. In English, there is no fixed way to spell a compound word. Some like greenhouse are written as one word, other like dog bed as two words, and still other like producer director are written with a hyphen between the two bases. So we can produce or we can compose compound with three different ways. We can spell a compound like as one word. Here we have example where it's here like greenhouse. You can see here compound is spelled as one word. And here compound is spelled as two words, dog, bed. And here compound is spelled as two words, but there is hyphen between the two words, producer, and hyphen, and then director. So we have three different ways that we can spell a compound in English language, right? A better criterion is stress. How do we understand whether it is compound or it is a phrase? So a better criterion is a stress. We will know a compound with the help of a stress. Compounds in English are often stressed on their first or left hand base, because compound word is the composition of two words, right? So the first or the left hand base, it would be stress, whereas phrases typically receive stress on the right. For example, we have a word that is greenhouse. So we can't say greenhouse, we will say greenhouse. So the left one or the first word, that is green. So green would be stress. Compare, for example, a greenhouse. You can see it is bolded here. Greenhouse. So we can't say greenhouse, we will say a greenhouse, which is the place where plants are grown, and to a greenhouse. Or if you say that a greenhouse, then it is not a compound. That is a house that is painted green. But it is not always the case that compounds are stressed on the left. There are exceptions, because English is a kind of language that is totally illogical. We don't have logic. Sometimes a compound is stressed on the left-handed word or the first one, or sometimes a compound can be stressed on the second one or the right-handed. For example, most people pronounce, like we have a word that is apple pie, right? So here the stress goes on the second one. According to the rule, apple should be stressed, but people don't say apple pie. People will say apple pie with stress on the second base. So stress goes on the pie, right? So it is pronounced as apple pie, not like apple pie, with stress on the second base. But apple cake with stress on the left one. We don't say apple cake, we say apple cake, and we say apple pie. So here the stress goes on the second one, and here the stress goes on the first one. Both are compounds, right? So yet we have the feeling that both are compound. It seems illogical to consider one as a compound and not the other. So both are compound here, right? There is, however, one test for identifying compound that is fairly reliable. We can test for whether a sequence of bases is a compound by seeing if a modifying word can be inserted between the two bases and still have the sequence make sense. So we have a test. You can identify whether a sequence of words 2 or 3 that is compound or not. You should insert or you should put a modifying like adjective or adverb between these sequences. And if still it is a sensible or it gives sense, so you can say that it is not compound, because in compound we cannot place or insert modifying. So if a modifying word cannot sensibly be inserted, if you can't insert a modifying between sequence of words, right? If you can't insert, then it will be a compound. And if you can insert a modifying between a sequence of words, then it will not be a compound. So the sequence of two words, it is compound. This test confirms that both apple pie and apple cake are compound, because you cannot insert like modifying here. You can't say that apple delicious pie, or you can't say that apple delicious cake, because it doesn't make a sense. So both are compound because you can't place a modifying between these two words, right? Or you can't insert here a modifying between these two sequence of words. So in spite of their differing stress, in neither case can we insert a modifier like delicious between the two stems. So apple delicious pie and apple delicious cake are equally peculiar. So we can't insert here modifying. So it means that both are compound. Even like on one word, the stress goes on the first one, and the second compound, the stress goes on the second one. But both are compound because we have tested here, and this is like a reliable test in morphology, right? Compound structure. We can look at compounds as having internal structure in precisely the same way that derived word do. And we can represent that structure in the form of word tree. The compound windmill and hard hat would have the structure like in 19. You can see here that here we have noun, noun plus noun. So wind is also noun and mill is also noun. It's a tree diagram, right? You can present or you can represent a compound with this way. And here we have hard hat. So one is adjective, hard is adjective, and hat is a noun. You can see as a whole we can call it a noun, right? Even we have one word that is adjective and other word that is like a noun. But as a whole we call it a noun. Here we have noun and plus noun, and as a whole we call it a noun, right? Compound, of course, need not be limited to two bases compounding in what is called a recursive process, in the sense that a compound of two bases can be compounded with another base and this compounded with still another base, so that we can eventually obtain very complex compound. So what is a complex compound? When you add compound plus compound and plus compound and plus compound. So we can't say that compound can be restricted or compound can be limited only to two bases, right? We can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bases even to form a complex compound in English, like paper, towel, dispenser, factory, building, committee, report. So this is a compound word. You can see paper, towel. It is like we can have two bases here, and then dispenser, factory, again two, and building, committee, again two, and then we have a report. So as with derived words, it is possible to show the internal structure of a complex compound using word trees. Let's see what is the tree for this one. You can see here that assuming that this compound is meant to denote a report from the building committee for the paper towel dispenser factory, we might give it the structure like in 20. You can see this is a structure, right? As a whole, we call it a noun. And then here we have different nouns. You can see paper is also noun, towel is also noun, dispenser is also noun, factory is also noun, building is also noun, committee is also noun, and report is also a noun. So what it says that assuming that this compound is meant to denote a report from the building committee for the paper towel dispenser factory, we might give it a structure like this one. Now, some compounds can be ambiguous and therefore can be represented by more than one structure. For example, the compound articulate observer might have this structure. You can see here we have that is articulate observer. Articulate observer. We can see here noun, noun plus adjective plus noun, articulate. As a whole, it is a noun. And then we can have another one that is observer. It's also a noun. So what does it mean to say that articulate observer? It means that there is an observer who observes what? Articulate. So this word can have like two different interpretation, right? So it is ambiguous. So when we put observer here, so it means that there is observer who observes articulate. And we can give it meaning like you can see adjective plus noun. Articulate observer. Here we can see that there is a Kate observer. Kate observer is there, and that is articulate. We can explain that the way we have drawn this tree, the compound articulate has been compounded with the noun observer to make a complex compound. So here we have a complex compound that is articulate observer. Now, the compound as a whole then must mean an observer of Arctic cat. You can see here that here we say that an observer of Arctic cat. And right, observer of Arctic cat, but if the compound Arctic cat observer were like intended to mean a cat observer who likes to do her observation. So here there is cat observer is there, and cat loves to observe something. So like her observation in the Arctic. So here in this structure we would say there is a cat observer, and where that cat observer is in the Arctic, right? So the structure of the tree would be that like in 22 where cat observer is the first compounded and then Arctic added to it. You can see first we have cat observer and then Arctic is added. And here we can see that first we have like Arctic cat and then observer is added. So here a person, there is observer who observes what? Arctic cat. And here we can see that there is an Arctic cat. Oh, sorry, there is a cat observer, right? Who is in the Arctic. So then we can have two different interpretation, and two different interpretation can happen, and you can draw it with this tree diagram. Now, often the more complex the compound is, the greater the possibility of multiple interpretations, and therefore multiple compounds on free basis, just as English does, although we can see in the French and Vietnamese example that the order of elements in the compound is sometimes different from the English. In fact, we will return to this in next section. So thank you so much. That was the end of this lecture, and here we discuss in detail that what is compound and how do we spell compound, and in previous lectures I discussed that how new words are formed in English, and we discussed with the help of derivation. And here we learned that derivation is not the only way that we can create new words, but we have also the process of compounding. So we learned that compounds are spelled in three different ways. We can spell compound as a one word, we can spell compound as two word, and we can spell compound two words, and there will be a hyphen between the two words. And we also discussed that when do we have compound, and how to identify compound, and how to test compound. And finally then we explain compound with the help of a tree diagram. And then we discuss there's how sometimes a complex compound can be ambiguous. So thank you so much, and please provide your valuable feedback, and please don't forget to subscribe and like the channel. Thank you so much.